Welcome to the Bold Money Revolution podcast. This is your source for straight talking, no fluff, business and high performance conversations that add real depth and value to the way bold leaders live, work, and thrive. I'm your host, Tara Newman. I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a leader so that you can grow a business that is profit-rich, efficient, and allows you to generate real, tangible wealth for yourself and others. We are here to help you lead with your values, to perform without overwhelm and burnout, and to do your most important work in the world. Hey, it's Tara here. Want to know how to ensure your business is profitable so you can pay yourself like the expert you are? For starters, you have to have a plan. You have to plan for it. Yep, no winging it allowed when it comes to how you're going to keep more of your money. Profit is a habit. I've made it easy for you by creating a calculator that will take you from your personal financial needs to exactly how much revenue you need to make that happen. It couldn't be easier. Then we automatically tell you how much money you need in order to pay yourself, pay your taxes, and invest in your business. It is that simple. Our revenue goal calculator is built on the principles of profit first, which creates a robust and manageable system for running a bold profit business. To create that financial peace of mind you're after and to make your big money plans become reality, you'll want to make sure that your business is set up to fuel your financial goals. A plan to fuel your financial goals? That's pretty damn sexy, ain't it? Take the first step today by downloading our revenue goal calculator to get started. Head on over to theboldleadership.com/revenue or text revenue to 415-528-7403. That's text revenue to 415-528-7403. And get your hands on our free resources to get you started. I'll even walk you through it. I'm so excited to help you make sure that your business is creating financial security for you and your family. Head on over to theboldleadership.com/revenue to get started right now. Hey there, bold leaders. This is Tara Newman, the host of the Bold Money Revolution podcast. And today we are here with one of those episodes that is going to be like a deep breath. It's going to be like a warm hug. It's going to be calm for the nervous system. You've got your favorite CEO in your ear with a little bit of truth and a lot of grounding. And today, what I want to talk about is what to do when you're in doubt, when you're doubting things, when you're overthinking things, when your head just feels scrambled and you're having a hard time righting the ship, right? You might feel adrift in your business, a little lost, like, what do I got to do next kind of thing? Or you might be just feeling like nothing's working or everything's going so slow or what am I getting wrong, right? None of us ever feel that way. So this is for you if you may be in that place. And if you're not in that place right now, just bookmark this, save it for the 2:30 in the morning panic attack when you are in this place. So too many business owners get trapped in the day-to-day grind, in what's happening every day, what needs to get done, the tasks, the to-dos, especially in the seasons that sometimes turn into years of building. I'm in my 8th year of business, the 5th year of this podcast, the 3rd year of implementing a very specific and consistent email sales strategy. And this is the first year that I don't feel like I am in a massive build year. We are stabilizing. We started to stabilize the business last year, but there was definitely a lot of growth activity that was happening. We cleaned some things up, but this year is for sure a stabilization year. And what I mean by stabilize is that most businesses get scale crazy. We're going to scale, or growth crazy, whatever, however they want to language that, right? Grow. And there are actually stages in business. And I talk about these stages in business in a number of podcasts. We'll link up a few that I have done here in the show notes. But you have phases in your business, stages in your business that look like pre-startup, startup, growth. And then everybody just wants to scale. But there's a little pit stop between growth and scale that needs to happen, and it's called stabilize. And stabilize looks like getting your systems and your structure set up, cleaning up any messes you've made, deleting things that no longer work or aren't leading to a positive impact or a positive ROI, or that they're draining your energy, right? And this is so usually when people are like, I want to burn my business down, they're stuck in growth. And what they really need to do is they need to stabilize. And everybody wants to, when they're in that place of, I want to burn my business down, everybody wants to whack the heck out of it with a hammer. And really, it's a scalpel. We need to look at stabilization through a lens with surgical precision to be identifying where we could be relieving things that are creating overwhelm, that are clogging things up, that are bottlenecking the works. We need to put systems in place. We need to put some automation in there. We need to look at your team and see how you're delegating and if you have holes that need to be added. And these are the things that happen in the stabilization phase. And usually you have been successful in stabilization if maybe you're making the same amount of money that you did last year, but it's way more profitable. That's always how I like to look at stabilization in terms of a result. Because what people wind up doing is they wind up thinking they're scaling, but they're not. They're actually in growth. Scaling is when you can do more with the same amount of resources or a minimal increase to resources, where you really have a good idea of what those expenses on the business are going to be, and that when you're adding revenue, you're not growing those expenses dramatically. But growth is often this chaotic tug between increasing expenses and increasing revenue, and really not being clear on what moves the needle so much. And that's actually a normal part of business. It is very chaotic. It is very messy. So when I talk about these stages, that's really what I just wanted to say. And some of these stages, you're in for a long time. People come to me and they say, oh, I've got a mature business. I've been in business for 3 years. No, you don't have a mature business. I'm working with businesses in my consulting practice that have been in business for 30 and 40 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? That's a mature business. Even me, 8 years in, pretty much the infancy. Can I keep this going for another 2 decades, right? What do I need to be thinking about to get this going, keep this going for another 2 decades? So that's kind of what I wanted to caveat things and say, this is the first year where I don't feel like I'm in a massive build. We're in this really delicious place of stabilization that's giving me my time back. And my husband's business is 40 years old. He took it over in 2016. He bought the business in 2020. And it's been 7 years of this build, this organizational change initiative that he's got going on, where he completely overhauled his team. He's completely re-innovated his products. He's changed the way that their systems are running and their processes are driven. And now 7 years in, his momentum is starting to carry him further and further every day. He doesn't so much have headwinds that are pushing against him. He now has tailwinds that are pushing him forward. And that's really where I am as well, 8 years in and consistently executing on some of these strategies that we use in the business. I say this because it's easy to get lost and feel like things are murky when you're in a 7-year organizational change project like my husband, right? Where you're in this 8-year build like I have been. And I'm sharing this because I want to be honest and transparent around what it takes to run a business, what it takes to really hit that aspiration that so many of you have, where your business is providing a level of financial stability and security for your family, where your business is providing some of those, I don't want to call it extras, but like that boost, right? That boost in wealth, that boost in fun, in vacation and things like that. And so it's easy to lose patience and feel frustrated. It's easy to not be able to see the forest through the trees. So we have to stop thinking in this these 1 year increments. And at the same time, we have to get you out of the day to day. And there's two things that we can do to do that. One is looking at things in a 90-day cycle, right? So we can start to help you get some real feedback on the strategies that you're testing. And then the other thing is to really zoom out over an extended period of time. And the reason why this is coming up particularly right now is because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about sales are slow, or the progress that they're making feels minimal. When in doubt, zoom out. But first, let's zoom in and let me tell you a story. So in August of 2022, I was in a panic for weeks, watching our podcast downloads look like they have fallen off a cliff. And it started in July and it proceeded through August, and it threw me into a mental tailspin. And I would message Stacy and I'd say to her, "Are you sure our podcast episodes are uploading properly on all the podcast players?" And she said, Yep, it's fine. And maybe a week would go by and I'd say, "Are you sure we're promoting these the same way we've been promoting them did something change?" "Nope, we're good." And I'd message her and I'd say, "Is Libsyn working properly?" And finally, mid-August, I had just sheer lost my mind. And I messaged her. I'm like, "Have we been canceled on the internet? You have to tell me. Go look. Have we been canceled somewhere on the internet? Is the website working? Have we been blacklisted? What is happening to our podcast downloads?" I mean, steep decline. And she says to me, "Tara, this happens every year." And I was like, "No, it doesn't." Right. And then I go and I pull up our data and I look at our podcast downloads from 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And we had an epic year of growth last year on this podcast. We grew this podcast 44%. And over the last 2 years, it had grown 60%, huge growth. So I look at the chart, and 2022 is just such an outlier of a year in terms of growth that even when, the podcast downloads dipped in July and August, they didn't dip below what they were the previous July or August. And so you can see that it was clear on the chart with the data that this podcast was really growing. And as a matter of fact, I looked, and every August, Stacy is correct, podcast downloads drop, except for 2020, which is clearly an outlier of the year. That was a time when everybody was in lockdown. I'm sure people were going stir crazy and just, looking to entertain themselves and fill their mind with something else. And so podcast downloads in August of 2020 were up. And you can start to see the story that these numbers make when you zoom out. So I want everyone to zoom out. I want you to look at your data. And I want to tell you a couple of ways that you can work on zooming out. So first of all, know your numbers. Know your numbers. You don't need to know every number. That would be overwhelming. But you need to know the numbers that are appropriate for what you're trying to accomplish. The reason why we look at podcast downloads, it is absolutely not a perfect metric by any means, but it does show us that more people are landing on the podcast and they're going through, and we can see them binging on episodes. And we know that when people do that, it leads to sales. I've yet to have a sales conversation with somebody that they don't quote something that they've heard on this podcast or reflect on a case study that they've heard on this podcast. And as a matter of fact, if they don't listen to this podcast, I have evidence that they don't convert to a sale. And so I now have a question on my intake form. Have you listened to the podcast? Because that will very much clue me into what kind of a conversation this is going to be. And I get to decide whether I even want to have that conversation, right? So that's why we personally look at downloads. So know your numbers. Realize that you're in your feelings and your feelings aren't fact. I'm not going to dismiss your feelings. They are important, but I want you to temper them with the facts. You can still feel upset about something, but I want you to be clear on what is actually happening and not making up stories in your head. I can't tell you how many times clients have come to me and told me they're not making any money. The business isn't growing. And I'm like, well, have you looked at your numbers? Have you looked at your P&L? And they say no, and they go back and they look at their P&L, and it tells a very different story than what they are thinking. Once you start to feel this way, I want you to talk about it and say it out loud. So me going into Slack and sharing this with Stacy was an important part of that journey. You need to be able to say it out loud because Stacy needed to come back and say to me, they're fine. Nothing's wrong. We haven't been canceled, right? And if it's not somebody on your team, this is why it's important to have support and surround yourself with knowledgeable people who are going to remind you to go look at the facts. You might not even realize that you are hyperventilating over your feelings. Right? I was technically looking at my numbers. I was looking at the downloads of the podcast. I did have fact in front of me. The numbers were going down. That was true. But I had to zoom out and look at them over a longer period of time. So when you're zooming out, you're looking at the whole picture. And I want you to look 3 years out. I want you to look 5 years out. Because anomalies happen, lean years happen, but on the whole, it looks very, very different, especially now when everybody is feeling maybe a little anxious. Maybe we're reading the headlines too much and not actually reading the actual articles, and we're starting to believe the hyperbole and the polarization that is out in the world. I will tell you, it is not true. However, you're hyper-focused on what's in front of you right now. And that is a terrible way to build a business. I want everybody to lift up their heads, focus 3 years out, and take action today for what they want 3 years from now. And if you want this kind of support, and you want this kind of knowledge, and to surround yourself with a trusted group of women who are knowledgeable and experts and who will support you and cheer you on and help hold you accountable, then I want you to go over to theboldleadershiprevolution.com/academy and sign up for the wait list for the Bold Profit Academy. We let people in on a monthly basis. When you put your name on that list, you're basically telling me that you're raising your hand and you want to have a conversation with me. When I see that happen, I reach out personally, like actually through my Gmail account, okay? And we're going to start a conversation, and it might not be the right time for you, and that's fine. Just hit me back and say, I definitely want to consider this, but now's not the right time. Let's talk again in 3 months. I make a note. I come back and talk to you in 3 months. All right? That is how that works. This is a grown-up, real business in how it works. And I'm here to support anyone who wants to join us in making the best decision for them and to help them understand what's possible for them individually in that program, and if now's the right time to join us. So make sure you get over to theboldleadershiprevolution.com/academy. If you found this podcast valuable, help us develop more bold leaders in the world by sharing this episode with your friends, colleagues, and other bold leaders. Also, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review. I consider reviews like podcast currency, and it's the one thing you can do to help us out here at the Bold Leadership Revolution HQ. We would be so grateful for it. Special thanks goes to Stacey Harris from Uncommonly More, who is the producer and editor of this podcast. Go check them out for all your digital marketing and content creation needs. Be sure to tune into the next episode to help you embrace your ambition and leave the grind behind.